welcome back to another episode of the Heroic Nation podcast, and a lot of exciting stuff. Exciting. Hence the desk pounding. Stuff going down. So this is the first episode under the flag of Counterculture Inc. Counterculture Inc. consists of a collective of amazing podcasts and social media presences, way cooler than what I got going on. Anti-Hero podcast is leading the charge with this. It is kind of like their brainchild, and they're bringing a bunch of like-minded people together. And definitely check it out. There are so many really kind of big names in the space that are being collected under this flag. So I mean, I'm honored to be part of it, and hopefully they don't kick me out for sucking. And I'll hang on for as long as I can, but they will have to kick me out because I will not leave willingly. They will have to fire me, and then I'll create some chaos as I leave. So I'm just kidding. I really will make them fire me, though. That I'm not joking about. But hopefully I don't. Hopefully I don't suck, and we continue to get better and bigger and spread the word, the good words. So and with that said, the guest today is Tyler from the Anti-Hero podcast. And like I said, they're doing an amazing job building their platform. I talked about this on Beyond the Barrel, who is also under the flag. Beyond the Barrel podcast is that Anti-Hero is actually derived from me. So you can listen to that show and find out all about why I started that for them. Spoiler alert, I didn't really, but Tyler did hear me on a podcast. So one of my old ones, and kind of got the idea back in the day to do this. And now here we are, X amount of years later, they're kicking ass and taking names. And I was glad that I could kind of inspire, like him to do this. So it's good shit all the way around. All right. Before I get into the show, I want to let you know about the Heroic Industries School platform. It is an online trading platform that is totally free to be part of. If you are looking for strength conditioning, mental and physical health and performance, it is a place that you specifically can go to learn all of those things. It's where I post all of these podcasts, as well as several different lives and coaching throughout the week. You'll also, if you want to have a training program, you get your 2 weeks for free. So you join the school platform, and then you are granted 2 weeks of training for totally free. And if you need help with anything else, then you just post in there and ask. You get access to me, some other coaches, and other people that are really trying to make law enforcement, first responders, and the tactical population much stronger, healthier, all the way around physically and mentally. So if you're interested in that, click the link, and I'd love to have you on board. So with that said, enjoy the podcast. We talked about a lot of cool stuff, and let me know what you think.
Yeah, you are the professional. So,
well, we're in between studios, so I got this like late shift home studio set up. So, I haven't ever ran this setup. Well, I have but it's been 3 months. So, everything's working.
So where are you at now? Where were you with the studio, and where are you going to? I mean,
we were at First Responder Coffee Company warehouse, but he was subleasing his warehouse from a leasee, and the real leasee got into it with the industrial complex owner. The leasee left, leaving Brent as a subleasee with rights under contract, because he was under contract to sublease, but the owner's just running him out, trying to tow the cars every chance he gets. And so the studio is going to have its own standalone studio for the first time. It won't be attached to a building.
Yeah. So, is the owner of the building that he's renting from friends with Tim Kennedy by chance? I mean, that's part of the problem.
Dude, it's weird that you don't know, when people are assholes to you or ghost you, you're like, what the fuck? And they drew their line in the sand, which I respect. But we had people that just lost contact with us, and we're like, oh, and it's we'll go check them out, and it's oh, they pledged loyalty to the other camp, which is cool. Like I said, I respect that. I'd rather a man draw a line and say, I'm not going to associate with you, rather than play both sides.
The other camp. That's funny, man. So like I'm watching this kind of from the outside, and it's, I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious. It's like there's one perspective, there's another perspective. Like, why not have a conversation instead of acting like WWE drama? Like, that's what it looks like. It looks to me like old school West Side Barbell, where it's like, Dave Tate gets pissed at Louis Simmons, gets pissed at this guy, and then all of a sudden these big ass tough motherfuckers are all at each other's throats, and they're all starting their own gyms, and everybody's talking shit about everybody else. It's like, why don't you guys just take a fucking breath and like
sells that. The only people that benefit, Tim Kennedy doesn't benefit from it. We do.
Right.
No one knows who we are. So every time Tim Kennedy throws a temper tantrum or something, people are like, who's the anti-hero podcast?
Yeah. Right. So did I see something with Dan Crenshaw the other day? Did you?
Yeah, I guess I'm not making this up. He's really good friends with Tim Kennedy. I did not know that. But we had Eddie Gallagher on a long time ago, and Eddie was like, when I got jammed up and he was wrongfully tried and imprisoned by the Navy, he was like, I reached out to Dan, a brother SEAL who had the power to help me, and Dan turned a blind eye to him and just didn't want to get involved. So that's what we said in a recent clip. I'm just regurgitating what Eddie Gallagher told me. And Dan Crenshaw went off at the mouth at like 1 a.m. Well, it's Texas time, so probably like midnight his time, just calling us chubby and retards. And but here's the thing: is that he's got 2.1 million followers, and he shared the reel. Like, any publicist would be like, Dan, just let it go, laugh it off, don't give these guys a light of day. But he shared it, so now all 2.1 million of Dan Crenshaw's fans got to see for themselves that it's kind of just a funny clip. We put music behind it and picked on his eye patch a little bit. Like, it wasn't like a declaration of war. It was just funny. But
but you can tell, man, you can tell where people are sensitive. If you make fun of them and they cannot take it, you can tell, like, there might be something to this. Like, I said it as a joke, but holy shit, like,
yeah,
I think we need to pull on this thread a little bit.
Yeah, he's under fire. Fox News hates him. They're all saying he's got insider trading going on. And, so he's going through all that too. Maybe he just thought it was like more people dogpiling on him. But again, it was just, we expected him to go, y'all are wrong. Y'all want to hear what really happened? Like, absolutely, Dan. Let's hear what you have to say. Like, but he called us chubby.
Nice. Very, very congressman of him. Like, you talk about insider trading with dudes like that. I don't know how like, that would be so hard to have all that inside knowledge and not act on it, but yeah, it's neither here nor there.
Yeah. And I mean, he kind of went on and explained it a little bit. He's like, they're saying like, you guys want all these congressmen and senators to not have any of these rights that you have. Like, who's gonna, and then he said the only people that would do this job are millionaires because they can afford to. He's like, would you want that? And,
right.
That's a great question, because you want those to be representatives of you. So, going on record as saying, Dan Crenshaw, I agree with you on that.
Yes.
Hold on. Can I shut my bedroom door? My family's so loud.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
Yep. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks for jumping on. I won't take too much of your time today, but like, let's kind of touch base on the Anti-Hero podcast itself. I want to talk to you about that, because I know we've talked over the past, how long has it been on now? Like a year and a half or so?
When you were on?
No, well, yeah, when you started it.
I think it's been 2 years, and it's probably been about a year and a half since you've been on. You were my first ever remote podcast guest. First ever.
OG. I set the tone, set the bar.
and then you did the Nazi comparison. I think that was my first ever viral IG clip.
I can't believe that was such a stupid little thing. And it was like, this guy's a Nazi, even looks like a Nazi. He even looks like it was more about my haircut than anything.
Oh, that's funny.
But so what are the origins of it? And like, I want to talk about the name, like why you selected the Anti-Hero podcast. So yeah, on that.
Well, I got essentially peered off the team, and I had a lot of time on my hands. So I didn't. I'm not on brand for like, and I'm not saying this to be funny or anything. I'm not on brand for SWAT. SWAT's still a government entity. It's an organization. It's a professional organization, and I really do respect that. But I had the apparel line. I don't. The way I think is a lot different than I think. A lot of not really even teammates. The chain of command thought different, and so I was there were some hot heavy hitters on the team that wanted me gone, so I was cut, and then I had a lot of free time on my hand. So I was like, well, I'll just do this podcast idea I've thought about doing for a while, and all I did was really I just did a couple days worth of research that you would do for anything. I'm gonna go restore this car. I don't know anything about it, so I'm going to go research it. So I buy the right shit type thing. And then I just stuck with it every week. And the name, man, I was going to call it something so gay. I was going to call it Step It Up Podcast. Because when you're like, when you're like, I need you to step it up. Like, and then I was like, that just sounds like the dance movie. So
it
I
really
wrote
does.
the anti. Yeah. And so I was literally picking my email for the podcast, because I do that with anything I start. I pick an email, and I was like, the Anti-Hero podcast. That's just bold. It's not bold. Basic enough. It's not taken, and it kind of represents me, or a lot of us, in a way that, like, when you go full on one thing, you might like I might not be on brand for being on the front of cereal boxes and eat your vitamins and your Wheaties, and you can be strong like Superman. It might be like the guy that, is the anti-hero that you watched as a kid, So I think that's where the kind of name came. But the anti-hero is a varying level of however you want it to be. Because Batman technically is an anti-hero. It's all how you perceive, you compare yourself to a good person versus some of your flaws. And I feel like a lot of people can resonate with it.
Yeah. So when I saw that, like, my brand is Heroic Industries. So it's like, I was like, that's really cool. When you put that out, Anti-Hero, I was like, this is gonna be fucking cool, whatever it is. Like, cause we had talked a little bit. And then when you put that out, I was like, that's gonna be super, super cool. The name alone. And that was one of those where I was like, fuck, man, I wish I maybe should have gone with that. Like, when you hear that stuff, you're like, shit, that was a good idea. And I was so close. But I really think that the concept of heroes and anti-heroes is super important, especially for anybody in like tactical world, police, first responders. And then understanding that is like, that's not a permanent state. Like, whether you're the virtuous hero or the anti-hero, like you said, Batman. Like, Batman blends those lines. And even if you watch like the newest Deadpool and Wolverine, they're both anti-heroes until the very end. Then they have this like transformative process that they actually come back as a virtuous hero. So it's like, if you want to get into the psychology of it, it's really, really deep, and it's really cool. And I think that on the job, we blur those lines all the time, because you can't work, like actually work in law enforcement without being an anti-hero some of the time.
Yeah.
And with the more, it gets harder to do, to blur those lines now with all of the surveillance that we have. But to be a good cop, I think you need to embrace both sides of that coin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause I joke about it all the time, but how could you know what's wrong if you've never at least been in the room with wrong? Not saying you partook in it, but we all grew up. We were all young men. We've all seen people break the law. We've all seen bad things happen. We might have just been like, I don't want anything to do with that. But, and it goes back to like the classic case of like the best cop out there is probably the worst family man. He probably cheats on his wife. He probably has a drinking problem. When I say probably, I shouldn't say it. Probably is a strong word, but could have some of those bad flaws that people just go, Well, but he's, we respect the fact that he's a fucking super cop and he would die for anybody out there, and he works long hours and he's well respected, and you know, so it's kind of like the anti-hero. Like we don't, might not want to put him on the face of the company, but he goes out there and does the work.
Yeah, it's using maybe a good way to put it's like the means might be a little gray of how he gets the job done, but
Yeah.
we're all driving towards the same goal, you know. And a lot of times the anti-hero will get it done a lot faster and get the, you know what I mean? Like, because
Yeah. And
around all
we
those
were,
hoops.
we were just talking on my podcast the other day about the psychology of why people like bad guys in TV shows, which makes the writers turn them into anti-heroes because they're like, holy shit, these people are really resonating. But there's probably a very easily explainable, broad a reason on why people are infatuated with bad guys. But I think anti-heroes can do what real solid, eat your vegetables and take your vitamins heroes are able to. They're able to reach more people than those heroes aren't. So they have their job. That each one has their place, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like what you start getting into here is Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, and like my my background's in psychology, so like this stuff is awesome to me. I love this. I love ripping this stuff apart, and I love comic books. So you can really see where all the parts. But yeah, and this is why, like, when DC started, they were all virtuous heroes. It was Superman, and like Batman was different. But he became this, like, especially in like the golden age of comics, he became this virtuous hero, and it really was like detrimental to the company because when Marvel came out, all of their heroes had way more personal depth. So you could see their flaws, and you could see, like the allergy attacks that Spider had and that kind of stuff. As Peter
Wolverine smoking a cigar.
Exactly. Like just being an asshole, like that kind of stuff. They gave him a lot more personality and character flaws. So people gravitated way more towards the Marvel stuff than the DC stuff. So, but you talk about villains too, and it's like without a good villain, like the heroes aren't defined, or the anti-heroes, right? And then you take those really popular villains, and some of it's marketing, and it's like, well, how can we put these characters in more stuff? But then you give them more redeemable qualities, and then all of a sudden they're flipping sides and they're on the Avengers. And it's like, how did Deadpool get on the Avengers? How is Venom a hero now? That kind of stuff. And it's like, it really shows you that, like, inside these archetypes, all of them like live inside of us. And it's like, which ones are we going to choose to use in that moment? Is that appropriate or not?
That's actually a really good point. So it's and as like you said, what do we pull from as fans, as living and values, and like, I feel like I can do more good as an anti-hero, as somebody that goes on platforms and advocates for cops and is not vulgar, but not like textbook, like, union guy. And I just I can better help the industry and help us doing that. Whereas if I were to go on and, I don't know, like look in the part, like I'm not like a physically fit dude. So like when you look at me at face value, like, dude, motherfucker's in a beanie, like I just like, so you have to have kind of replace it with other imagery where, if you were like for instance, if I was be like, yeah, you need to work out and be healthy, they'd be like, give me something good, Tyler. What's the new drama? Whereas if you said, hey, you need to work out and be healthy, people are gonna be like, yeah, I know. I'm definitely going to listen to you. It's just kind of what you bring to the table.
So when you started the podcast, what was your ultimate goal of it?
I think kind of like put balls back into police work. And so I would just talk about things that were very vague and broad. They were problems in our industry, but they weren't particular to me or my agency that I work for. They're just problems that we all go through as in a culture that we need to address. We're losing union strength. We're losing good candidates. We're losing guys as an industry every day. And it's like, we're just falling apart. And so I was like, well, I'm going to start shedding light on some of just the biggest problems. And people were like, oh, you can't do that. It's crazy. Like, I can't say that most cops have PTSD because they go to fucking a traumatic event, a shift, and they start being callous to it and used to it. And then, then you have to learn to live with it. And that takes 5 years to really learn to live with it in a healthy way, because the first 5 years you're going to be living with it, but you're going to be storing it in the closet and it's going to be coming out at times. And I'm not saying you need to go to therapy by any means, but the 5 year rule, just with cops, with everything, just everything clicks and you're like, oh, okay. And then you can kind of look at it as a more, for me anyways, I can look at it in a more healthy light, as opposed to like just dealing with all the shit that I see and stuff like that.
Now PTSD is a funny thing, man, because it's like what causes somebody to have it or to deal with it or to say it out loud, like, is totally different. So it's like we have such a broad scope of what could possibly kind of break you down as a person, like person to person, cop to cop, right? So it gets really hard to deal with it, from an appropriate standpoint. And a lot of it is like, well, just make sure you have somebody to talk to. You talk about therapy not being appropriate. It's like, well, yeah, it might not be, and there's so many different ways to deal with processing the shit that we see. And in all of it's exacerbated by the fact that our structure as agencies is not built to support it. All it is built to use us as a tool, use us up and spit us out on the back end,
Yeah.
So and then to compound all of it, our expectation that that's not the case and that the people in charge actually do care about us is like wrong. So then that kind of exacerbates things further, and then we feel like we're completely alone in this.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. PTSD is it's per person. That's why you can't really put like things on it, because like one time I reacted really weird to a beeping sound. Not in a bad way. I just I like locked in, and like my body posture changed, and my wife was there and she goes, "What the fuck was that?" And I was like, "Dude, that's our same tone out at work." We were on a beach at a lifeguard station at night, and that lifeguard station just happened to put out in another state. Just same tone, right? Coincidentally. And she was like, "That right there is like, that's PTSD. Like your body is responding to, a sound that you heard, and you're snapping into almost like autopilot."
Yeah.
And so, but and my co-host has a really good take on it. Because I remember when I first met him, I asked him, like, how does tier 1 guys just murder people for 20 years and then go about living their life? And he said that he does think that PTSD exists, but he treats it more like an injury, and you should never say that you are disabled. And he said also, it's all about your mindset going into it. So if like me and you are going into the job, and we have people telling us you are going to see dead bodies all the time, you're going to be in the room and feel the energy of people who are going through the worst day of their life, and you're going to go live with it every day with them. You're going to be put in situations where you're about to pull the trigger and kill somebody, and then you're not going to, and then you're going to have to go to a call that is routine after that. And if you have people prepping you for this for years and you decide to put the badge on, I think you're way less likely to fall to symptoms of PTSD. Whereas if you read the pamphlets about helping your community, and then you go through that, you're like, dude, this sucks, because you weren't bracing yourself for it. You weren't preparing for it.
Yeah, that's 100% true. And if you look at the psychology behind that, right, that is framing appropriately. And that's what, like, I get a lot of questions when I'm on other people's podcasts and stuff about PTSD and thoughts on that. And I totally agree with what Brett said about, like, it's a PTSI, post-traumatic stress injury versus disorder.
Yeah.
Because that puts a more internal locus of control. Like, you're in charge of that injury. You can heal an injury. If you're you're just fucked up, right? So, like, that's a way better view of it. And also, like, yeah, you see the pamphlets, you see the stuff, like, come help your community. Look at all the diversity we have. Everyone is fun. Everybody loves each other.
Everyone is fun.
Right. That's really what, like, I know on our end, like, that's what it looks like. And it's like, okay, come fly drones, come direct traffic. Look how happy everyone is. Be a PIO, be an SRO, like be these happy positions where everybody loves you. But they don't show the middle of a domestic when people are bloody and pissed off and drunk as fuck, wanting to throw you into walls. And if you really understand that prior to, like, this is not an if, it's a when, and it's how many times, right? And it's like, you have to put the frame in context to make it appropriate. Otherwise it's completely inappropriate. I say the same thing about like football, right? So like my kid plays football and he's going to be a senior this year. And every year I make him read the label on his helmet. It says, this game's really dangerous. You can get paralyzed or dead. Now, do you still want to do it? And it's like, yeah, I do. Okay. So now the expectations. This is a violent sport. So when you get a head injury, like you don't get pissed off or confused. Like it's what it is.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. As far as like the subconscious of protecting your head, where this isn't we're not out there playing lacrosse, contact sport, but it's still like, this is for you are in. What do you want to? You are going to be hit every play. It's not a matter of if I'm going to get hit this play, every single play. So I think like the subconscious of protecting your head is activated because you are made aware of how dangerous this is, and you give the green light. I still want to do it.
Yep. And it's not healthy, and that it's going to come at a cost, and you're willing to take that risk anyway. That gives you a lot more control. And if you put that in context of what we do, it's like every shift I know when I put my shit on the same way I do every day and go to work, that there's a chance that all these fucked up things could happen, or shit that I haven't even thought about yet. And like that, you take ownership of it, and it really helps you prepare. So like, this is where an ounce of prevention really is like a pound of cure, is like absolutely true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing you mentioned there is that I think is really important that people don't think about, and we don't think about as cops, is like all those almost shootings, right? So like, I've been in a couple actual shootings, and I don't know how many thousands of like taking slack out of the trigger type deals where it's like, oh, here it is. And I think everybody can relate to that, because whether you've actually pulled the trigger or not, it, like, in your mind, you've had like so many close, like almost pulled the trigger, to the point where your physiological responses are the same. And it's like, you can have 3 or 4 of those per shift, and the physiology is the same.
Yeah. Well, I actually want to pick your brain on this. I've never felt the physical effects that you cannot help, no matter how strong your mind is. Like, there was one time where like it was the closest I've ever been between, I'm going to like probably do this and killing someone. It was like, it was there. I was touching. And, but I held a position for probably 40 minutes. So the next time this person walks in my crosshairs, I'm not a sniper, so I don't know like what the mindset of a sniper is, but I had an M4 in an active shooter situation, and they were like, if he comes into this view, you end it, because he's firing at us through all the windows. So, all right, I came to peace that that's going to be me. It ended up not happening. It all resolved itself. And the next day I felt, so that we got off work at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, when we should have gotten off at 2, and we had to be back in at 2 p.m. And I remember thinking, when I woke up, I'm like, did I fucking drink that? Like, what day is it? I was so hungover, and I had no alcohol. And like the whole day, my head hurt. And I was like, what the fuck? I yelled at an old lady at 7-Eleven for no reason. And I was like, I started doing a little bit of research on it. And I came to the conclusion that it was like something with my adrenaline dumping. And, the fact that you can't, if the whole shift goes through something like that, you have to come into work. The whole shift can't not come in. Everyone's got to come in.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. A lot of it, I think what you're describing is just lack of sleep, because like, even though you got some sleep, because of the time frame and physiological responses of all of the adrenaline, the cortisol, the noradrenaline or norepinephrine, like all of this. And I'm not like a physiologist, so I can't give you all of the cascade of effects, but I know that all of that activation of that sympathetic system is going to fuck your sleep cycle for sure. And then you're going to still have those effects on the back end of that. And a lot of times, like, you get an actual hangover, and yeah, you're dealing with the toxins of the booze or whatever. But a lot of it is like, you didn't sleep at all. You were just unconscious, right? So not to, hey, well, were you asleep or did you pass out? Right. So when you pass out, you're not actually sleeping. That's the same issue that they have with like sleep aids and stuff, where they'll just put you unconscious. So it seems like you're sleeping, but you don't need positive effects of sleep. So you didn't get any positive effects of sleep. And that's also why, like, post a lot of departments, our department actually does a pretty good job with this, where post shooting, they'll give you 72 hours to try to get your sleep cycles back normal before they even talk to you.
Yeah. I think that seems to be kind of universal from what I've seen too.
Yeah. So, but that would explain why it's like, you're super short. You yelled at an old lady, like, she was just there, but you're from a stress diathesis model. Like, it's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
So overwhelmed with stress, and you're starting to dig yourself out of that hole. And then all of a sudden, more stress, you got to go back to work. And it's just unfortunate that we don't have any rules like truckers, where it's like, all right, you can only drive for so many hours and you have to sleep. Like, there should be something in place for us. Cause like, we had the same thing. We had a SWAT incident where we shot a guy who was barricaded in a vehicle and came out with a shotgun after like a 3-hour standoff last January, so almost a year ago. And then that went from midnight, New Year's Eve, to like 5 a.m. And then all of us that work days had to go right into shift. They didn't even give us an hour to decompress after, 3 or 4 dudes on our team dumped this guy. And then now it's like, hey, all right, cool, debrief it, back to work. We're like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Like, nope, go right back to work. Okay.
Yeah, man. And that's, unfortunately, that's been that's never going to change. And it's been that way forever. And, I feel like we've kind of painted law enforcement, like you were saying earlier, as this, like, come dance with the community. And it's like a 9-to-5 job. And it's, it went to the Irish and the Italians because no one wanted to fucking do it back then. And that's why they were like, well, I guess we need a fucking job. And that's where the pride came from, where the rest of society not understanding. And, I think as a culture, we were okay with that. In the last half of the last decade, cops, when I say we, cops were okay with that. We had our pride. We had our brotherhood. And we didn't need the rest of society to understand or really care about us. And then, Soros or whoever you want to blame started breaking down the brotherhood and breaking down the respect that society has for law enforcement, because it used to be like, like your dad, like, I don't agree with him and he's an asshole, but I respect his position as my father, where now people are like, I don't respect cops at all. Like,
yeah. Well, I think a lot of the difference is, you expose the public, the normies, right, to a subculture that was hidden before, right? So if you just work a 9-to-5, say you're an accountant, right, and you got 2.5 kids and the white picket fence and like the suburbs and all that, right? You're never going to be exposed to a crackhead in your whole life, right? Other than by a total accident, maybe. Never going to get exposed to, a violent incident. You're never going to be there. And now with body cameras and dash cam footage and all of this technology, all of the normies are being exposed to a culture that they don't have the mindset and the ability to really comprehend. So now it's like they're just believing what they're told because that's what they do. And it's, well, you should never even see this because, like, what is this? That's why the Supreme Court has a standard of a reasonable officer, not a reasonable person. Because a reasonable person would never do the shit that we do. They would never.
I never knew that, dude. That's like crazy.
They would never even attempt it. So, like, I have a Congress or a state rep, right? That's a buddy of mine, and I was explaining this to him. I'm like, would you ever? Because he didn't understand that concept at first. And I was like, listen, when I go to a traffic stop and the dude doesn't stop and he's throwing a gun out the window and he's driving 80 miles an hour down an alley and I'm following him, would you do that? He was like, fuck no, I wouldn't do that. I'm like, exactly. So based on that, you have to judge an officer on what a reasonable officer would do, not a reasonable person, because a reasonable person would never even engage in that.
Yeah. Let's just like somebody, you were standing on, you were with somebody. Let's use the new vocabulary. You're standing there with somebody in crisis in a safe distance, and they brandish a knife, right? You got, damn, Anthony, you probably got near 20 years experience.
17. Yeah.
That based on their body posture and what you know about that person in this call, you might not even flinch or care, because that, but you know that you're safe and that nothing's going to happen. But that another person put in your shoes is probably going to blow them away. Like, well, they pulled a knife out, because, well, you're an officer. You had 15 plus years in training, and putting your body through this over and over, and your mind through this. Like, I never knew that. That's crazy. Well, I never realized that it's a reasonable officer, not a reasonable person. That's cool.
Well, and that's super important to understand about police action shootings and use of force. And that's where, like, 2020, like, hearing, like, seeing all these dipshits on the internet about, like, oh, the police can do this. It's like, no, like, you don't even understand Graham B. Connor, Tennessee versus Garner, the reasonableness objective. Like, if you don't understand these base level things, you have no business in the conversation. It'd be like me talking about calculus with somebody. Like, I can tell you what it is, and that's about it. But like, I am not good at math. I've never been good at math, but for some reason, I think I have the right to have an opinion about calculus. Like,
well, I say this all the time, dude, all the time. Even the most respectful places that make your meat. If you were scrolling, eating your chicken nuggets, and you saw a video, you'd be like, oh, don't want to watch that. And you keep scrolling, because it's just something you're like, I know what happens. They provide me these chicken nuggies, and I'm going to eat them. And I respect the fact that they don't make me know what happens to get these chicken nuggies. It's the same thing. Law enforcement is providing you a service, and it's like, man, when Karen calls about, the weird person on the side yard at midnight, and you go out there and, you're a hero in her eyes, but she might be the same person at 9 a.m. to be sipping coffee with her other Karens, talking about how you might not need to be so violent. And in her opinion, like, oh, thanks.
Well, and what's funny is, like, if that same lady did have somebody trying to get through her window, she would want you to kick that dude's ass, right? And she would have no problem with it. But if she saw that her neighbor was, and, say it was at her neighbor's house and she watched it, and it's like, oh, well, that was too much. But not if it's at my house, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But it's like this inability to connect, like, the same thing, man.
Yeah.
Like, same exact thing.
And it's that, and it's also me as a person and me as a father and a husband. Like, I don't have to risk my safety and health for you to feel better about an apprehension. I'm so sorry. That's not how it works. People are like, why does it take 5 guys to, 5 cops are beat the shit out of this guy? No, it's taking 5 cops to arrest this dude because he's high as shit. He just committed a couple felonies, and they're actually trying to safely apprehend him, rather than it's one-on-one and nobody's coming for me. It's probably going to be the worst outcome for that dude, like worst, because I'm not high. I can feel everything. And, so it's a lot of this, jujitsu stuff. I absolutely go train jujitsu, because it's, it's a great pastime. I've never heard of anybody quit it and go, that shit sucked, I hated it. I've only heard good things. But at the end of the day, I am not required to go do jujitsu 3 times a week to safely apprehend you. If it warrants it, I will punch you in the fucking face as hard as I can multiple times until you're either going or you comply. And and I don't have, none of the policies are being rewritten saying you can't use anything you've ever been able to use. They just want you to use BJJ because it looks better.
Yeah, well, and this, oh man, so, like, now you're starting to get into, like, the marketing of jujitsu coaches in the space of law enforcement, i.e., the Gracies. And so funny story. When they released, did you see that safe wrap system that they released a while back? Yeah. So, like, it's a fucking twisted arm control, and I saw that, and I started making some posts and sharing some people's posts. It's kind of like your Tim Kennedy thing on a way lower scale, right?
Yeah.
About what's his name, Henry Gracie, and, like, dude, this is bullshit. Like, you can't just claim this is safe and sell it to, agencies. And I got blocked, so he blocked me. I can't get into.
Really?
Yeah, I think I got like 5,000 followers or something. He blocked me and a bunch of other people, but yeah. So like jujitsu is great and it's great for a lot of stuff, but it's still like you can still strike, you can still break people's noses, like. And you want to talk about de-escalation? I'm a firm believer that a lot of times de-escalation is increasing the violence as hard as you can within the law for one time. You know what I mean? Like if I elbow you and I break your collarbone, let's say, right? You're not going to fight anymore. Depending on the context, like that might be totally appropriate.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of fights that I've ended with a punch that was landed square. The dude didn't want to fight anymore, and then I used jujitsu to handcuff him. Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of
And
times,
it de-escalates itself the entire time.
yes, it takes variables away. Right. It takes variables away. So if I try to use jujitsu and it's not really time for jujitsu control, like you're going to have to dance around and you're going to have to work takedowns and stuff like that. Versus if I do more of like an MMA style, I hit you with a palm heel and then I hit you with a takedown and then I hit you with a joint lock. That's going to work pretty good. But it's making sure that your training matches your skill set and matches the context. And that could be strikes, jujitsu, wrestling. I mean, high school wrestling is probably the best thing to take for anybody, that wants to get into law enforcement. Like make sure you're wrestling.
Well, something you do that routinely for years, especially at a young age, you could wrestle in high school and never do anything else. And you'll be 45 years old, still resorting to what you know. And like you said, that's all you need. You just need to have the experience of taking down another human being. And like I haven't done BJJ probably since I was a combative instructor in the Army. And after that, dude, the Army's since revised their stuff, but it was brutal. And I was like, I don't want anything. It was 2012 before the BJJ hype. And but I still I fall right to my fundamentals. Side mount is not hard when you've done side mount for 2 years, 3 days a week, and it will never be hard for you. You will go into it. What do you call that? Not subconsciously, but you will go to it without thinking, involuntarily.
Yep. Yeah. You do what you do. And like, I wrestled a little bit in high school. So like, even when I got on the street, we went through, our DT's program, not bad, but I found myself still going, like dudes would go to base up after I'd tackle them. And when I was new and I'd see this position with their elbow up, pushing up. And I a couple times I started to run a half Nelson and I'm like, no, this isn't good here. I don't want to roll him back to his back and let him fight more. I want to cuff him up right now. So, but yeah, it's just these things that you learn even years ago, like, and especially high school wrestling is super stressful. Like did you wrestle at all?
No, but I remember seeing like, I didn't want that was the first time, because growing up playing team sports, you're losing with 26, 30 dudes. Yeah. Wrestling was very like some of the dudes. I'm like, man, just like, I couldn't imagine like getting mopped up in front of all of your friends in the school, like at a one-on-one and now you learn as an adult, you're like, I respect anybody that steps out there. There's no loser. But as a kid, it's like losing a fight in the cafeteria forever. And I just always thought I didn't have the balls at the time to do an individual sport like that. That wasn't like tennis. It was like, it was like not barbarianism, but it was.
Oh, it's pretty close.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like one man wins and you're in fucking 10th grade. Yeah. Like it's respectable for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's legitimately the things that you can do where I can put my kid on a wrestling mat and say, go get into a fight. And it's totally acceptable. There are rules, obviously, but it's a fight, man. You're going to pin the other kid down until he quits or they say that's enough. And it can go for 6 minutes, and that's a shitload of time to be in a grappling match with somebody. 6 minutes is awful.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it is so stressful though, that it like the stuff that you learn there under that high stress and to execute it, or you're going to get smashed, right? Like I know if somebody gets into my legs, I'm going to get taken down. I'm going to get smashed. It's going to hurt. So now if you touch my legs, I'm automatically getting my hips back, and I'll do that forever. Right.
Yeah.
Such a stressful environment. That's going to be my default constantly forever. So.
Yeah. And like I said, man, that's some, it's comfortable, confident people that can go do that at such a young age, not caring what anybody thinks. Like I won, I lost. Like, you're dealing with that at a young age where people may never have to actually face the fact that they lost something, because they're those types of people that always embed themselves in social events or team sports, and it's like, as a very young man, you're learning like this was all because of me. Not that I'm a bad wrestler, not that I'm a bad person. But this is all essentially my fault that this happened. And I can either train harder or get in a different weight class or quit because it's not for me. And those are just huge tasks to take on mentally at 10th grade, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. Team sports are amazing for a lot of things. Like you see so much work within like, all right, what's my role here? I got to work as a team. How are we going to collectively come to this goal? And I think that those are instrumental to development of like healthy people, in productive people and jobs and that kind of stuff. You can always tell people that only have done individual sports, but you can also tell people that have never done any individual sport where it's like, no, man, you lost that race because you're slow. Like it's you, like nobody else's fault, right? You lost that wrestling match because you weren't as good as the other dude. There's no way around that. Like you lost because of you. And it's like, all right, I guess I can't push this off on anybody else.
And it teaches you also life's not fair, man. God has a plan. When like, man, why am I up against this guy? Like I like the dude, the fucking guy that's never lost, and he's the biggest guy in your class, and you're like, you're just telling yourself like, I'm gonna lose. So and it's like, why, man? It's not fair. Like, oh, that's just how life is. No one else had to face him. You did. And, and then that kind of sets you up for, well, I might have lost, but now I know I can face things like that. And I'm not afraid to, and getting philosophical again, but.
Well, yeah. And it's like, how do you lose, maybe gracefully, but also like, what do you gain from the loss? Because if it's just a loss and it just drives you down a negative hole, then it was a loss. Right. Mm-hmm. But you lose and you're like, all right, like you never win everything all your life. Like that doesn't happen. So now what can you take from this in order to lose less, and that's really important. I was listening to a podcast with Jordan Peterson. I can't remember who he was talking to, but they came to the point that, sports in general, the biggest, most important thing you get from playing sports is learning how to lose and learning how to bounce back from loss.
Yeah.
Because I think statistically what they said was like, it doesn't matter who it is in the career, your lifespan of playing sports, all of them, right? You lose a lot more than you win. So why do you keep doing it? It's like, well, it's to learn to lose and to learn how to deal with that. And I was like, well, that makes a shit ton of sense.
Well, I mean, just look at what the things that we're doing now. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but you're probably close to be done working for the man and take on new ventures in your life. But I mean, like I said, I tell everybody all the time, I was very much inspired by a lot of your ambitions to do stuff outside of law enforcement. And so I've launched many things, and how many things have failed? Like how many things like I did not work out? And you can either sit there and go, well, that's not fair. This happened and I wouldn't, or you can go, I'm definitely not going to implement any of these things, these factors that made this fail into my next venture. And now your next venture is more successful because, a failed business. And luckily, I mean, I've had things fail where I didn't invest my entire life savings into it. That would be awful, but that shit happens.
Yeah. And it's really like kind of connecting more dots here. Like we talked about like framing things in an appropriate way for the job, but it's also like framing things appropriately kind of for everything. Cause it's like, all right, my gym, right? I sold my gym. I wouldn't call like that a failure, but I don't have that business anymore. It served its function and I ran into some walls. I ended up offloading that and it wasn't exactly the way I wanted to do it, but it was still, it was a win for the most part. But would I like to have that? Probably, still, but so now I look at that and I'm like, well, that wasn't fair. COVID ruined my gym. Well, it did kind of. But how can I safeguard my shit in the future and like you said, learn from it and make it better? Cause like a lot of the stuff that you create, you think you have the thing, right? So like say Anti-Hero podcast, you think that this is the thing, maybe it is, but maybe in a year it evolves and changes shapes. Maybe you move into this new studio and it becomes this whole new thing. And if you don't have the flexibility to adapt and to grow with it, like you're going to miss opportunities. And that's where failures, a lot of times where one door closes, like 6 more open, you just got to keep your fucking head up, you know?
Yeah. And even your successes too. Like you just nailed it. Don't be blind that this is it. Like, okay, this is the rest of the path. Because I mean, I knew I wanted to get into entrepreneurship, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know how. I've always worked for the government since I was 19 years old. So I started a t-shirt business because everybody was saying like, dude, it can't, like a t-shirt business. It teaches you the basics. It teaches you marketing, teaches you like really basic business skills that I didn't go to college for. So, and then at the end of the day, it's not like I'm wheeling and dealing, $50,000 deals, it's a $29 t-shirt with 10% off, And so with that, but because I was like, damn, I need to advertise this, but I had no money. I was like, I need to get on podcasts, which is probably how I found yours. And I was looking for cop podcasts and there just wasn't any out there or enough that I could find. So I was like, light bulb, I'll create a podcast that's just the advertising arm for my t-shirt company, which then I created the Anti-Hero podcast and that took off better than my t-shirt company. Yeah. So, and then because I started the podcast, all kinds of just opportunities are presenting themselves because of that podcast, which you said, I might be able to start a new career somewhere where the only reason I had that opportunity was because of the podcast, just somebody I happened to meet. Like, hey, what's up, man? So,
yeah. Switching back to law enforcement a little bit. I know you've talked before about like leadership in law enforcement, and I've got some opinions on this too. What do you think about like the leadership landscape of law enforcement right now?
I think it's always been your hard charging sergeants and maybe some lieutenants, and then there's that fine line of mini politicians. And I think cops at the end of the day, when they're like, all right, I'm done, I'm hanging up my cop hat, I'm going into politics, and that could be at the rank of lieutenant. But we're losing supervisors, the guys that you look up to, the guys that protect you. Do you know the sergeant with 23 years on that no fucking little piece of shit lieutenant's gonna fuck with? Yeah, I want to be under that sergeant. Like, and those guys used to be very prominent, and they are retiring, and no one's filling their boots. And so okay, well, that's a problem. And then, admin and brass, that's not going to change. That's, it's probably been around since the beginning of war. I want to move up in rank. I'm going to not consider the culture. Like, who wants to tell the position above them, we got a lot of problems here? Or are they going to say, no, we're fixing it, sir. Everything's great. Okay. Good job, man. And all your troops are like, well, that's not accurate at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that the structure is what the structure is. And I made the comment probably, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago now. There was some jockeying around in the admin, right? We got new chiefs coming in who are going to replace people, and everybody's jockeying for everything else, and everything's up in the air. So it's like, listen, you're only going to get promoted to anything above lieutenant because you're buddies with the people in charge. That's it. They were like, well, that's not fair to say. There's some good ones. I said, no, there's some people that we like who are good for us, but other people don't like them.
Yeah.
So it's like the only reason that they're there is because they jockey for it. It's not like you bring your resume up to the chief and you go, I'd like to be a captain, right? No, that's not really how it works. I don't think that there's an interview process for this. I think that they just kind of like do lunch dates and people jockey for position, and that's how it goes, man.
Yeah, and you nailed it. There's guys that like, hey, if I had to pick anybody to be the new lieutenant, I'm picking this guy. He wants it. Okay. There's that. He looks after us. And there's nothing wrong with growing as an older cop and going, okay, I'm going to go up the ranks, but I want to represent the dudes. You're not, you're going to have an uphill battle for the rest of your life. You're going to be swimming upstream while all the cocksuckers are going right by you. And, but I don't know. It's too, those guys are also few and far between. I just feel like that it's all politics, and You know, nobody wants to stand up for cops anymore. You know, it's as sad as it is. It's just not even our admin.
I don't I don't know that it's ever been true though. You know what I mean? Like there was like nobody really advocates for us. Our unions, like I think you said it at the jump of this, was like we're losing power with those more and more every day. I mean, the stuff that we have now with our union here is basically just a defense attorney in case we get into a shooting. Like we don't really have any collective bargaining rights. The city tells us what we're doing and we kind of take it. And hopefully we think it's fair, but like we don't have a very strong union presence. And like who does advocate for us? And the answer is like, if you don't educate yourself on how to advocate for yourself, like you're going to get walked on, and then you're going to get pissed that everybody's treating you like shit. And it's like, well, the system is kind of designed to treat us like shit. And if you understand that, then it doesn't get as hard to deal with. Like there was a, there was a, what was it? I got sued for use of force, and it was a fight. It was like one of those fights where it's like, dude, I got cut up and scarred. I got bloody. Like it was a fight, right? This dude did not want to go to jail for a gun with an obliterated serial number. So we got into a huge fight. I got all fucked up. He got, tons of road rash from where I tackled him, and he sues me for excessive force. And I talked to my attorney, who was hired by the city. And I said, well, I want to countersue because I've got all these scars. I have permanent disfigurement on my elbows and stuff like that. And she goes, yes, we'll countersue. I go, sweet. So fast forward like 3 months or whatever, they're in arbitration, and she calls me and says, hey, they'll drop their lawsuit if you'll drop yours. And I go, how much is he getting? And she was like, what do you mean? I go, I know he's not dropping it unless he's getting paid, because I know how the system works at this point. Yeah. And she goes, well, I'm not at liberty to discuss that. I go, it's not zero. She goes, it's not zero. I said, I want half of what he's getting, and then I'll drop mine. And she was like, are you kidding me? She goes, the city's going to have to take this to court, and it's going to cost all this money. I go, I don't care. It's not.
You're pumping me up right now. You're pumping me up.
So I was just like, listen, so I went on a little tirade with her, and I got on my soapbox, and I'm like, you're supposed to advocate for me, but you're hired by the city. So you're really just a city attorney. You're not my attorney. I go, who is advocating for me? I lost a uniform. I got all sorts of fucked up. I had to deal with all this shit, and I almost had to kill this guy. Like it was a big fight over a gun. And it was like, fine. I said, she goes, what do you want? I go, I don't know. I'd at least like my uniform replaced. And she goes, how much? I said, $350. Dude, I could have said like 3,000, and they would have been like, done. We'll give you a check. So the city ends up paying me to drop my lawsuit and him to drop his. I was like, this is ridiculous. Now you're paying both parties to drop a lawsuit that this guy's all for.
You're having to expose the fucked up, flawed system. And then, you ever seen that scene in Law Abiding Citizen, where he's like, he makes that big outburst in court, and he goes, this is what I'm talking about. How are you going to let me go? Like, you were just about to, I murdered somebody, and you were going to let me walk out of this courtroom. He's like, you're a fucking idiot. And it's kind of like, it's like you don't care about the money. It's the fact that you strong-armed them into, fine, we'll pay. And it's like, no, it shouldn't be anybody. Like, this is just the job. The shitbag should go to jail. Everybody should say, no, you're not getting any money. Take it to court. The judge should say, no, you're not getting any money. And then I shouldn't get any money because it's my job. And then we should all go back to life. But they want to pander. And it's like you said, no one's standing up for us. So you have to stand up for yourself. And
yeah, you have to. And that
stupid little things. I'm the guy I'm briefing. That's retarded. And I don't agree with that. And then you hype up the room. The room agrees with you, but not a lot of people are going to say like, that's stupid. So yeah, I'm my captain's worst nightmare in briefings.
Well, at least you have them. Most places don't have them, man. And I think that's a mistake too. Like if you don't get any FaceTime with the people you work with, it gets a lot easier to hate each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool, man. But what do you guys got coming up? I know you guys always got shit coming up.
We got the move to the new studio is just kind of like the thing that's like lingering. We're waiting on some paperwork and stuff for that, but we're starting these live shows. We're starting a media company called Counterculture, and it's just um, like-minded podcasts and influencers that want to network and, you know, want to have with a strong network comes loyalty, to each other. And not saying that you podcasts can't go anywhere, but when when we're all individually alone, we're nothing. When you unite under some kind of umbrella, you're a lot more effective in standing up for, like yourself and our culture. And frankly, I'm sick of seeing Black Rifle Coffee Company own that sphere, own the veteran thing, own the law enforcement space. Like, let's hire on angry cops and donut operator. Now they are the spokesperson for law enforcement. Like, that's it. Civilians know those two guys, and so no, there's tons of law enforcement podcasts out there that talk about real shit, and you need to hear them. So Counterculture is literally decided to make it like literal. It's Counterculture Inc. So we're doing our first live show in Philly. What we decided to do is we're going to try every quarter. We're going to go find a podcast that will not take on the financial burden, but will host the event. Hey, I know a great bar. I know a great pub. I know a great cigar lounge. I know a great FOP lounge. I'll orchestrate everything, and then orchestrate getting the gear there to have the live show. Again, not pay for everything, but just facilitate it. And then we fly in, we have a huge live show, and we just do that in every city. And in theory, we're hoping it builds a big community. And it gets like we're going to Philly for a podcast called Good Cop, Bad Cop podcast. I'd never heard of them. But hopefully with us coming, we have people in our DMs saying like, I'll be there, like 40 people in Philly. Like, cool. So hopefully we're able to help out this small podcast, and they're able to give us a platform so everybody wins. So kind of something like that. We're starting to push for a network that can facilitate all those things.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome play. I really like, first thing that comes to mind is Daily Wire. Like, that's what Daily Wire did.
Yes, Daily Wire.
And then all Jordan Peterson and Shapiro, all those guys.
It's hard because it's businesses, and obviously we all are ideologically aligned for the most part. We all want the same thing. We all trust each other, but at the end of the day, it is business, and you're asking someone for an RSS feed, and they're going to go, okay, well, what by giving you that, I'm okay with it, but what do you give me? So you have to be very articulate in what is tangible and what isn't. Like, this is what you will tangibly get. You will be able to see it on paper. You will get this. And then you have to explain to smaller podcasts, because I was the same way when I joined my first network. I was the same way. You have to explain to them the benefits of being on a network that just, you can't see it, but you experience it. And so, but hopefully we'll get, and we're the hardest part is finding a platform that will allow us to, everybody wants like retard money, but they also see the anti-hero, the numbers that we bring in. So they're like playing with, we definitely want the anti-hero podcast on our network, and so we're trying to get better rates, because like right now, $500 a year per show, that doesn't benefit anybody. No show is you could just launch on Podbeam or Spotify for free.
Yeah.
So we're trying to work through all that. But once we get that done, we're going to hit up a lot of podcasts and be like, hey, do you want to be a part of this? If not, there's no worries whatsoever. If you do, here's what we plan on doing as a network, and go from there.
Cool. Trying to think, man. I think that's about it. Oh, I know. What are you listening to right now? I think we're very aligned with a lot of things, and music, I think, is one of them too. So like, what are you listening to right now to work out?
Man. I'm weird. I buy music that I'm obsessed with, but like a lot of like Kubla Khan. It just depends. Like, they're very heavy. Like, that's a super heavy band. But I just downloaded the Deftones the other day. Like, I just heard a song. I was like, why don't I own that song? Because I love owning my own music. I don't like streaming it. So, like POD. I know I'm old because I'm going and downloading the hits rather than listening to.
Dude, I was just going to say that. How old are you?
37.
Yeah, dude, you're hitting that point, dude. This is where I realized I'm starting to get old. When I was just like, I'm listening to the same shit I did in like 2000, 2001, 2003 when I went to Ozfest. I was like, I'm just listening to this shit over and over again. I'm like, fuck, I'm getting old.
Well, and those bands are getting back together. It's amazing. And you listen to like, I mean, no offense, I know some guys in these bands, but like, you look at that, listen to Octane, dude. Every fucking band sounds exactly the same.
It's not.
And now they're starting to realize it, and they're putting out articles and like podcasts are coming out and saying like they're all following the same format, and they all sound like soft dudes. And no, there's no punk rock spirit in music anymore. You know, hey, if you do this for 2 years, you will be, you know, we'll let you on Octane to pay. You got to pay your dues and be part of the machine that pumps out garbage, or you could just be a punk rock awesome band that just stand like Ozzy. You know, if you got to go out there and bite heads off bats and everyone thinks you're satanic, but you're not, like, okay, that's what puts you in front of people. And as long as your music's good, it works.
Yeah. Well, anything good, and this has kind of always been the case, but anything good's still underground. But yeah, man, I'm like, dude, Zach Sabbath, like Zach Wild's still killing it, right?
Yeah.
Like still after all these years doing like little underground side projects, like, hey, let's just go on tour and do a bunch of Black Sabbath covers. I've been listening to that nonstop. It's
Zach Sabbath. That's I love, because he put out there's No More Tears. What was the album where he covered No More Tears, but it was Black Label Society? It was Sonic Brew.
Sonic Brew. Dude,
what a heavy album. Sonic Brew. And then the next one was called Counterfeit God.
No, that's one of the songs. It's Stronger Than Death.
Those albums, they're so heavy. They don't follow any mainstream format. That's just a dude and his guitar writing the heaviest songs he can. And I'm like, man, those are such good albums. And then 1919 Eternal. God, dude, all of them are so good.
The first time, like, you know, there's songs when you hear the first time, you're like, you get chills and you're like, holy shit, what am I listening to? The first time I heard Bleed For Me on the title or the opening track on 1919 Eternal, I'm just like, oh my God, this is the greatest band of all time. And then I think I've seen Black Label Society probably 70 times. There was one time he did a tour, Black Label tour. He was touring with COC. It was a great show. I saw him in Grand Rapids up in Michigan, where I'm from. And then he came to town, and we had a warrant that we served earlier in the day, and I had tickets to the show that night. And when I was leaving, I drove by the venue. I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna drive by, see if they're here. And I saw, I think, Woody from COC. And I was like, hey, dude. And he was like, hey, what's up, officer? You need to try to give me tickets to the show. And then I was like, well, I got some already, but like, is Zach around by chance? He was like, yeah, come on. Took me on his tour bus. I hung out with Zach Wild for like 2.5 hours, just shooting.
Really?
Dude, it was fucking awesome. It was one of the greatest days of my life. I'll have to send you the picture.
Yeah, dude. Oh, for sure. And then make this a reel and put it in there. Dude, before I go, I want to tell you, so I've always, since I started this podcast, I've always wanted to sit down with the cop that engaged the Dimebag Darrell shooter.
Yeah.
I have extensively tried to reach this man. And every single person, like, I put out feelers on Instagram, 40,000 followers, got probably 15 replies from Columbus PD people. Like, that's how many Columbus PD people. Everyone came back. He is off the fucking grid, dude. You cannot reach him. He, it really fucked him up. One of those things where he was not, you're probably going to get coffee or dinner, and then all of a sudden the craziest call at a nightclub comes out. You're 2 minutes away. You go into autopilot. You fix the problem, and then it becomes a mainstream thing, and you were involved in it. And they said that it really fucked him up. He eventually went to work for the fleet, the fleet department. He became a civilian, and then retired, and changed his numbers. And even his close friends on the job cannot get in touch with him. And I was like, man, how cool of an interview would that be? Sit down with like the guy, like, tell us from a cop's perspective how crazy that was and how you dealt with the PTSD.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. I'm not far from there. I'm gonna start working on that too.
Yeah, dude, that would be awesome.
Follow that. But yeah, so when that happened, that was what year? 2004,
I think.
That was
2004.
Yeah. So I was in college. We were just seeing that Damage Plan tour like 2 months earlier.
Really?
Indiana. Yeah. And I was looking at the dates. Yeah, it was my senior year of college because I was still playing football. So I went in the spring, and then I think football started, or maybe it was in a few months later. But yeah, they were in Columbus, and I was like, well, shit, that's only like 3 hours away, 2 hours away. Like, it was an awesome show. I think Hatebreed opened, Shadows Fall. Like, it was a great tour. And I was like, man, we should go to that. And then that happened. I was like, holy shit. Cause that was in December. That was the same day John left.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost went to that show. And then later that next summer at Ozfest in Columbus, they had that dude. I remember seeing him. He was on the wings of the stage, and they introduced me like, this is the motherfucker that shot or that killed Dimebag Shooter. And he was there. He kind of pumped his fist, and that was it.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Damn, dude. Yeah, because I went to Ozfest 2005. That was when it was either Judas Priest or Iron Maiden was a headliner.
Yeah, because they headlined like back to back. That was when I was every year. I can't remember which was which, but
2005 was one, and I think 2006 was 2006 was the last Ozfest I ever went to. Because then it started becoming, it went from Ozfest started as a one-time thing in like 96 or something.
Yeah.
And then once it became the tour, I started going in 2002. And I went every year until 2006. And then 2007 was where Warped Tour definitely just smoked it. Like Warped Tour put it in the ground. And so Ozfest started consolidating back to single shows. So, memory lane, dude.
Ozzy was getting pretty tore up too. I don't think he could handle the massive touring. But I was pumped though. A lot of those, like every other year, it felt like it would be Ozzy headlining and then Black Sabbath. So I love the fact that I can say I saw Black Sabbath like 2 or 3 times with the original lineup, like, fuck yeah.
Oh, and on top of that, man, I don't know if you still do, but you're like, man, I went from 9 in the morning to 11 o'clock at night in the lawn. Yeah. But I spent the first half of my day in a gravel parking lot with a sun beaming on me. And you're like, if I did that today, I would need like 5 days off work, like alcohol or not, like just the things that you put yourself through as a young person to go experience an all-day concert. It's like, you know.
Yeah, and I would look forward all spring, all summer, and you would just be wrecked. And coming back from Detroit or Indianapolis or something, it's like a 2-3 hour drive, and you're like, I am falling asleep. That was ridiculous. I can't believe I stayed for the whole thing.
Yeah, good times.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, dude, that's all I got. You got anything else?
Nah, man. No, I'm glad you had me on, dude. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Yeah, likewise.
You just came off a raid.
Yeah.
Just throw the t-shirt on, like, all right.
Yeah, every day. So, well, cool, man. I got to figure out a time to get down to Orlando, and I can just bum rush your studio and be like, hey, I'm coming on a show, deal with it.
Yeah, dude. We'll pre-plan episode 119. That's what you need to come on. And then we'll make it a Thursday, so that way we can do a studio session from Monday episode, and then you can just hang out for a couple hours, and we'll do the live at 8 p.m. And that's another animal, dude. That is
double duty.
Huh?
Double duty.
Yeah, dude.
Cool. All right, dude. Well, I will thank you for your time, and I'll be in touch for sure.
All right, buddy.